Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Well, good morning and welcome back to the program. It is the Tuesday edition of the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com on the internet. Hello, my friends. How are you doing? You ready to go? Just another beautiful day here in paradise, rainy, wet, and oh so fire-free around the old homestead. So kind of glad for that. Kind of glad and excited that that's where we're at. Tuesday edition of the broadcast, and we have got plenty of stuff to talk about this morning. We are ready to dive into this and unpack a bunch of stuff, including the weekly top three, which is, of course, our deep dive into Alaskan politics, courtesy of our friends over there at Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad Keithley will be joining us here in a few moments to talk about that and oh so much more. It's going to be fun stuff. Today on the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming primary and what we expect to see out of some of that. Also, a bit of spin by the governor on the fiscal year 23 budget that you've seen come out in the papers recently. And the proposal, final thing is going to be the proposal by the legislature to spend $100,000 on a quote-unquote friendly lawsuit. Now, I'm not exactly sure how you define that as friend, but it's a friendly lawsuit. We just got a question here. It's nothing personal, but we're just going to sue you. Anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Brad Keithley is going to be the guest today to discuss those things here in hour one of the big radio show. Then in hour two, we will, we'll throw some things around here at the top of the hour. And then we're going to be talking with Chris Story, the man from Homer, who's going to come in and give us a bit of a positivity. He's going to give us some life coaching. God, do I need some life coaching. Chris, come save me. I need some coaching in my life. It's a hot mess, this thing called life. Anyway, Chris is going to come in and talk with us. I have no idea what his topic is going to be, but I'm sure it will be educational, whatever it is. So we look forward to talking with Chris Story in hour two. Meanwhile, a couple of ways that you can participate on the program today. First and foremost, you can, as always, just do what you're doing right now, which is, of course, listening on your favorite radio station and or FM translator across the state of Alaska. And then you can also, of course, listen to the show on the internet. If you get to a point where your radio's not working, maybe you're in a building or something, or you're in a bad spot on the highway, you still potentially could be listening on the audio live stream, which is available on my website at michaeldukeshow.com. Of course, the podcasts are also available. If you miss anything and you're just totally out of contact, then you can go over to the podcast wherever you find CastBox, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Any of those will do it. And finally, you can join us on the simulcast, which I only had to restart 3 times this morning to get it to work. But I don't know. Facebook, every Tuesday. It seems like it's Tuesdays. I don't know if it's just a thing on Tuesdays, but Tuesdays I always seem to have a hard time getting the simulcast to work on Facebook. But I finally got it going this morning, and so we're broadcasting and simulcasting on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. There you go. Any one of those. And, of course, the benefit of participating in those on the simulcast is that you're in the chat room, and I can see your comments, and I can see everything that's going on. And it's amazing. And I'll talk to you during the break, and Brad will hang out with us, and Chris will hang out with us, and we're just – it's like an old Homes week. It's fun. Come on down and be part of it. Be part of it. All right. It was a little cool this morning. I will admit that I did run the heater here in the studio just for a bit. Usually I reserve that for winter, but it is a little cool and it is a little rainy, and that's what we can expect for the next few days here in the state of Alaska. And in fact, down here in the south central area, rain has now moved the Anchorage area into its 8th wettest start to the year on record. They saw 1.75 inches of rain on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is the wettest that it's been since 2001. That's going to leave some of the water levels to rise. Officials in the Mat-Su, according to KTUU, are urging folks to be especially careful, recommending that if you are in areas where there's a lot of rain, don't go camp on sandbars or right next to the edge of the rivers and things like that. Be wary because water levels can rise very rapidly. And if you live in an area that's prone to flooding or flood zones or any other low-lying areas near streams or rivers, you need to keep an eye on what's going on. The Tanana up in the interior and the Kenai down on the peninsula are also running high. Southeast Alaska is seeing some scattered showers as well. And up in the interior, you're going to see some of that. So it's it's good news. It's good. It's good. It's positive, that at least the world is not burning. But we've seen a lot of rain, and we're going to see a lot more here over the next few days. But that's good. That's real good because we have surpassed the milestone of 3 million acres burned this summer. We already talked about the fact that there were over 227 forest fires or wildfires burning across the state of Alaska. And there are some big uns out there. Now, they've all been, hopefully, the recent rainfall has helped hamper those. But right now, 3 million acres wildfires, including the Clear Fire, which is burning up there near Anderson in the interior. That's reached a total of just over 72,000 acres, but they do say 56% of the perimeter is now contained. That's from the Northern Rockies Incident Management Team. That was started on July 21st by lightning, and its estimated containment date is going to be July the 30th. The other one that you probably or may not have heard of is the Lime Complex of fires, which is in southwest Alaska. That's a total of 18 fires. 18 fires, 2 of which are actually staffed. 14 are going basically unfought. Currently, 865,000 acres that have burned in those fires, spanning across an area. I mean, you think, why, 865,000? That's a lot. Well, except for the fact that it's covering 21 million acres. So those fires are spread out all over the place. The recent rainfall has definitely limited the fire activity and definitely helping those. There's also the Door Mountain fire at 114,000 acres and the Cooktooly River and Pike Creek fire that is 293,000 acres. Both are within the Lime Creek area. The Dalton Highway Complex fire is 17 fires that are burning for a total of almost 90,000 acres. And then finally, the Bean Complex includes 7 fires burning on the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta that all began from lightning strikes back in June. And they've got about 193,000 acres of that fire. They got about 290 people fighting those. They say the estimated containment date for that fire is October 1st. They're going to be fighting that one for a while. So anyway, a little rain, little wet, little moist, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Of course, I did notice that the ADN immediately posted a story about immediately threw a story about what the homeless are doing in the rain, because this homelessness issue it's real, folks. In Anchorage, they've got some serious issues. And the homeless are now all camped out at the Centennial Park down there after they shut down the Sullivan Arena as a shelter. And now this nothing but days and days and days of rain has definitely thrown a whole wrench into that kind of scenario. But this is an issue that's going to continue to haunt the Anchorage area for a while. No real solutions. We've talked about it on this program in the past that this homelessness issue is not a soundbite issue. It's not something where you can issue where you can issue one thing and this is how you fix. There's no magic bullet for this. I can tell you one thing we shouldn't do is we should not follow in the footsteps of Seattle or Portland or Los Angeles and done the things that they've done, because that's proven to not work. What we need to do is we need to look at some of the different areas around the country that have dealt with homelessness and found some solutions and work from those. That's really what we need to do. But anyway, the rain is good for a lot of us, but some of us not so much. I guess finally I'll read this story because I just, it's so sad. It really is. An Anchorage woman lost more than $4,000 after falling victim to a scam that had appeared to have originated from the Social Security Administration. She never thought she'd fall for a scam, but she does want others to be alerted. KTUU reports the story. She's going by the name Vicky. She's remaining anonymous. But what happened is that on Saturday morning, Vicky received an urgent call from a man identifying himself as David, who claimed to work with the Social Security Administration. He told her she was in legal trouble because someone in Texas apparently stole her identity, was attempting to frame her for a crime. She knew people in Texas, and David seemed to know a lot about her. She said that he warned her that in order to prove her innocence, she'd have to cooperate with him and do exactly what he said and stay on the phone with her. She was on the phone with him for 6 hours. 6 hours. He finally convinced her to go to a grocery store, drain her bank account by purchasing all the $500 Nike gift cards that she could afford. And he told her that they'd issue her new Social Security numbers and all the funds would be returned after the investigation. She was instructed to photograph the cards and the PIN numbers and text those to a secure government number. And anyway, after 6 hours on the phone, she finally realized that maybe this was a scam. And it was. The government is never going to call you and keep you on the phone. Like, if they've got a problem with you legally, they usually will just send you a certified letter. Or some form of law enforcement will show up at your house. I think that's pretty much where it's going to be. I mean, but folks, if you get a call purportedly from the Marshal Service or the IRS or the Secret Service or the Social Security Administration or some other they'll show up at your house if it's serious enough, or they'll send you a registered certified letter. That's how it works. It's just so sad. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Brad Keithley up next. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
All right, we're in the break. Good morning, and thank you for coming in. Sorry for the false starts this morning. I saw I saw a couple people try and comment this morning on the YouTube as I tried to restart. I had to restart the whole thing 3 times this morning. I don't know why. I don't know what was going on. And I don't know why it always seems like it's on Tuesdays that we've got to do that. I mean, it was one of those things. Anyway, I apologize because I saw some people commenting on YouTube as I was leaving, just as I was about to close the broadcast to restart again. So it is what it is. Raining a lot in Fairbanks. Finally, no smoke. Yeah, all that rain has knocked the smoke out of the air, which is good. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Little Sue, the little Susitna is running hard, says Brian. Yep, lots of rain. Got to be filling up and getting all that stuff squared away. Ask Kelly Shabaka how to solve homelessness. She says her family was homeless for a time when she was a child. Yeah, she says Alaska is all about it. Yeah, I had to report a hacker sending messages from a profile as Mike Dunleavy. No picture on the profile. Another tells he couldn't answer basic questions that the governor would have no problem answering. Just tried to deflect my questions with a comment asking if I had applied for state of Alaska benefits. Oh, yeah, of course. Of course it was. YMCA was started as a men's homeless shelter. Columbus, Ohio seems to be doing a good job, says Kathleen. To look at what Columbus is doing for the homeless. Whoops. Hey, where did that go? Give me that back. There we go. Excuse me while I whip this out. Let me see if I can get my Zoom meeting rolling here for Brad Keithley. Come on. There you go. Getting a little worried. Oh, wait, I got to turn Brad down because otherwise he's going to blow our socks completely off here. Alrighty. Turn that down, turn this way down, and then we'll hit the join with audio. Good morning. Good morning, Brad. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Michael. How are you doing?
Good. Look at that. I prevented the ear blast here this morning here on the thing. I'm doing okay. You staying dry and warm down there in Anchortown? Do you have your booties and your ark, your Noah's Ark? That you're gonna...
Well, we may have rain background noise here. It's raining sort of hard here against the window.
I was laughing because in the studio here there's a window that looks out right behind. It's got some heavy curtains on it for sound, but I was sitting here this morning working and all I heard was tackety cackety tackety cackety on the inside of the windows. I'm like, it's blowing straight into the house. It's the weirdest thing. But it's good. It's good. I would love to have a little bit of sunshine and no rain, but I also don't want to have everything in the world burned down around us. So
yeah, flowers blooming, grass growing, it's a good thing.
Well, my son was definitely disappointed because the grass we've been watering the hell out of our lawn for like 2 months, right? He's been watering every day and everything else, but man, as soon as that rain hit, the grass jumped up about 4 inches, and he's like, "Oh my God, I got to mow it again." Yes, son, that is life. Welcome to adulting. So anyway, it's good. Glad to have him here. All right. So you about ready to dive into this here? And
I am. I've been spending the morning, the little bit of the morning I've had looking at the 30-day reports. So I'm looking forward to talking about those too.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about that here and get things started here in just a hot second, so don't go anywhere. Brad Keithley, our guest here on the Michael Duke Show. We're going to get started in just a moment, and we'll get things going on. We're about 30 seconds out now from rejoining the radio, which is my opportune time to remind you to like and share this video, to like and follow the Yikes. I didn't turn that one down. Like and follow the show page, and make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube. That's how you do it. And do all the YouTube-y things. And do the same thing on Twitch. All right, here we go. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. All right, welcome back. It's time for the weekly top three. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, joins us on the program this morning, ready to dive into some stuff and cover what he considers to be the top three most important things that we should be focusing on this week. Why? Well, because we named it the weekly top three. That's why. That's what it's all about. But let's start things out. First things first, the primaries. More discussions, more decisions, fundraising, dollars, money. There's all kinds of functions and features here, Brad. Where do we get started?
Well, let's start sort of where we left off last week. We were talking last week about a poll that Alaska Research Survey Ivan Moore's group had done, and we were sort of puzzling through the numbers and trying to figure out where Charlie Pierce was and that sort of stuff. There was an article last week in the ADN that had as an attachment the poll results themselves, and sort of provided some additional light to what we were talking about last week, and gives it's an insight. I think at least I'm gaining an insight into how ranked choice voting is going to work. So the poll results showed that that what we were talking about last week, the Dunleavy, Guerra, Walker results, were the result of the second round. In fact, Ivan had done essentially a poll of the first round, and then dropped out the trailing candidate, the fourth candidate, and consolidated that into the second round. And the numbers we saw last week were the second round. The first round was interesting. It was according to the poll results in the first round, Dunleavy has 42.5% of the vote. Among those who are certain that they will vote. These are numbers for the category of certain. 42.5% of the vote. Les Guerra and his running mate, 26.7% of the vote. Bill Walker, 20% of the vote. And then Charlie with 10% of the vote, which was pretty good. I mean, pretty significant for a guy that's doesn't have a whole lot of name recognition. And the poll results, for readers that are interested, go to the ADN article and then look for the link to the poll results. So Charlie's were pretty good for 10% for some guy that doesn't have a lot of name recognition statewide, and the poll will have information about his name recognition statewide in there. And then in the second round, Charlie drops out. Charlie's dropped out since he's the trailing, and his second preference votes then are redistributed among the remaining three candidates, and Dunleavy moves from 42.5% among those certain to vote to 50 point. Let's see, it's 50 point. Oh, wrong direction. 50 point. 50 even. A little bit over 50% for in the second round. So what happens in ranked choice voting, I and others are starting to get our minds around this. What happens in ranked choice voting? Really, the second and third candidates aren't all that important. They are if the top two candidates are running close to each other. But if you've got a situation like the poll results show that we have here, with the top running candidate not yet at 50%, but running ahead, the second and third candidates sort of splitting the vote between them,
right?
And then the fourth candidate running behind, but nevertheless in the race. The fourth candidate, then when you go to the second round, the fourth candidate's votes are all that count. His second choice votes are all that count, and that's what pushes Dunleavy over the top. If Walker had been close, or if Guerra had been close, maybe it goes to a third round. But because the second and third candidates are splitting the vote, splitting the anti-Dunleavy or the non-Dunleavy vote between them, Charlie sort of determines Charlie's second choice vote sort of determine the election. So it's it's an education that who's in fourth place. It may not be good for them because they may not be on the way to winning the election. But the preferences, the second choice preferences of the candidate in fourth place may very well determine the outcome of the election, and that's what the poll results are showing here. So it's sort of it's important who gets into fourth place, and I think the lesson of all this is that, interestingly enough, that I think if Dunleavy's not going to get 50%. In the first round, what he really wants people to do is vote for Charlie. If they're not going to vote for him, he really wants them voting for Charlie, because it looks like with Charlie in fourth place, if Dunleavy doesn't get 50% in the first round in November,
right,
then Charlie's second preference votes will push him over. It's an interesting phenomenon as you start to work through how all this works.
This reminds us, we had a discussion with Dr. Fred Van Bennekom here a few weeks ago talking about ranked choice, and he's a ranked choice voting expert from the Great Brook Institute. And he said in many areas where they have experimented with ranked choice voting, that has become the strategy. Is that a group of Republicans or a band of Republicans will run for the same or adjacent offices in different districts. And they basically started to kind of all campaign together and say, either vote for me for number one, but if you can't vote for me, at least put me number two, putting it into that number two slot, and basically banding together and doing that. Basically, it reminds me of the old Avis ad that we're number two because we try harder, right? Which was really not true. The whole marketing story behind that is that they were actually elect number 7, but it was all about perception. We're number 2 because we try harder. But that seems to be the whole thing, is that focusing on getting that number 2 vote is almost as imperative for many people as getting the number 1 vote so they can get it through. And maybe that's Dunleavy's plan here, to try and do that. I just don't know. It's going to be such a hot mess. I think people are still confused, even though I'm starting to see a few more ads now trickle through. I think people are still confused at this point.
Well, and at least in the governor's race, we're going to be confused. We're going to be confused for a while, because as you pointed out, as I learned early on from listening to the Michael Duke show, in the August primary, we have 1 vote. And then we don't have the ranked choice vote until we get in the governor's race, until we get to November. So, the 1 vote, even if your guy is losing, even if your guy isn't going to win the August primary, or your woman, whatever,
right,
even if they're not going to win the August primary, it's nevertheless important, significant, and it counts to vote for them. I mean, voting for Charlie is a vote to get him into 4th place,
right? Position
him. I think it will give him more name recognition. I think it will promote his candidacy throughout the state to be in the top 4, certainly. But B, it sort of positions him to play that role as in 4th place if we go into additional rounds, if no one gets 50% in the first round, for his second preference voters to determine the outcome of the race.
No, and I think you're right. I think if he is able to pass the primary, Charlie in this case is able to pass the primary and get into the general as the 4th choice, that gives him a much better platform to get basically above the noise of all the other candidates that are out there right now running, and then give people who are frustrated with Governor Dunleavy's performance an alternative that maybe they didn't know, and maybe those numbers change. I don't know. But it was surprising to me that there was such a show of support. 42% in the first round, 43% in the first round for Governor Dunleavy. That shocked me, quite honestly. That was a lot higher than I was expecting.
It was 42 among those certain to vote. It was 51% among those very, very likely to vote. And I guess the thing that's surprising. But I guess the thing that's even more surprising to me is this split between Walker and Guerra. and with Guerra in the first round, at least having more vote than Walker, 26% of those certain to vote versus 20% for Walker. And I really, I thought Walker would do a lot stronger in the first round, and I thought he'd be. I thought just thinking about it, I thought it would be Dunleavy, Walker, Guerra far behind Walker significantly, and then Charlie in fourth, with the potential that Walker held Dunleavy down enough that the fourth, when you doing the fourth round, doing the fourth place votes, redistributing them didn't get Dunleavy over 50%, and so you then kicked into the third place votes or the third finisher votes, and I thought that would be a race where the race would be between Walker and Dunleavy. But now, looking at the poll results, at least Walker and Guerra are just splitting that vote almost right down the middle between the two of them, the non-Dunleavy vote between the two of them, and essentially knocking each other out. I think we're past. Well, maybe we're not past the withdrawal date, but we're moving farther down the road, and I don't think Les is going to be inclined to drop out. So if these trends hold, I see where the story last week talked about Dunleavy being far ahead and moving into almost an unbeatable position. I see where those numbers are coming from.
They could happen. Surprising to me that Guerra was garnering about 30% more of that vote than Walker. Was it 26-20, something like that? So right. It's a pretty significant amount when it's all said and done. And as you said, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of Southeast vote. I mean, what's going on with Les is there's a lot of Southeast vote for Les.
Yeah.
For Les, a lot of traditional Democrat vote for Les. So
well,
that's really where.
And, of course, part of these campaigns has to do with money, and it was reported late last night, early this morning, that there was a lot of campaign reports that came out, and, of course, yesterday was all about the monies from the various candidates. And Bill Walker had quite a 30-day reporting quarter there for himself, but it may not be from who you expect. I know you wanted to hit on this as part of number one.
I do. So Jeff Landfield was going through the 30-day reports. We'll see all sorts of press reports today about the 30-day reports. These are the reports that the statewide candidates file, or state candidates file 30 days in advance of the election. And Landfield had a piece up on Facebook last night that he looked at Walker's report. Walker had $800 and some odd $1,000 contributed to his campaign. $300,000 of that came from in three individual $100,000 donations. Two of them were from people who had been behind and pushed and are pushing the ranked choice voting approach. Catherine Murdoch from New York and Greg Orman from Kansas were two of the $300,000 contributors.
Kathy Murdoch, by the way, was the lady that said Alaska is a cheap date. That was her famous comment on the ranked choice voting thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, and she and Orman both have been big advocates of ranked choice voting and of independent candidates generally. Greg ran for Senate in Kansas, if I recall. I think it was Senate as an independent. Did fairly well for a while. Spent a lot of money on it. Ultimately, didn't win the election. But both of them have been big proponents of independence generally and ranked choice voting. And then the third was interesting. I've not dug into this. I'm sure there will be various reports today that do. But the third was a guy by the name of Jason Carroll, who lists his occupation as journalist and his employer as CNN. And I've not heard that name before, but he was the third person. So of Walker's $800+ thousand, $300,000 of it is coming from three individuals in $100,000 tranches. Now, not to be outdone, I went before the show. I went and worked briefly through Dunleavy's contribution list, and he also has three. He has over $1 million in donations that he's reporting in the 30-day report. A lot of that's coming from a transfer from the campaign before he named Nancy Dahlstrom as his lieutenant governor candidate, and so it's a transfer over from the previous campaign. But he also has $300,000 donors. One of them is his brother, Francis Dunleavy.
Right.
160 some odd $1,000, if I recall correctly, from just glancing through it. Bob Penny, our friend Bob Penny from down on the Kenai, also $100,000 contributing. And then a guy who I've done a quick search on and really don't know that much about. This is sort of like the third one from the Walker campaign, but a guy by the name of Armand Brockman, who is apparently an apartment and real estate developer from Minnesota, also has given $100,000 to Dunleavy. I'm sure we'll see more digging into that as in the days ahead by the press. But Walker Landfield was out of the gate first with talking about Walker's $100,000 donors, but Dunleavy's not that far behind. Dunleavy also has, and again, I'm sure we'll see more analysis of this in the days ahead, but Dunleavy also has a significant contingent of money coming from Houston. Frankly, some of the oil and gas lawyers that I used to practice with in the old days. So there's a lot of outside money that's coming into this race.
And just a quick reminder, Bob Penny, by the way, was the guy that had the no bid contract with the state as well. I mean, just want to throw that out there to remind people.
His son, Clark Penny.
His son. I'm sorry. His son, not him. His son. All right. Well, we're up against the break, Brad. Quick, brief peek at number 2. We got to go here.
Well, number 2 is an opinion piece that Dunleavy had in the ADN, claiming victory on the budget. That the budget was a win for Alaskans. We talked about the budget a lot last week, but this piece has some things that I want to delve into to talk about it again.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We continue here in just a moment. The weekly top 3. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend.
Michael Duke Show.
And we're in the break right now. What was that contract for, Brad? I've forgotten. It was a consulting contract with the administration as a special advisor to the governor, wasn't it?
For economic development.
Development, yeah.
If I recall correctly. He was supposed to turn up leads for investments in Alaska or something like that.
The reaction from the chat room. Wait, what? Outside money trying to determine a race? Shocking, I tell you. Gasp. Gasp. Shocking. Dark money? Wow.
Well, at least it's not dark money. At least we know.
Yeah.
We know where it's coming from. It's just a lot of money. I mean,
yeah.
So 3/8, whatever that is, 12, that's quite a bit, about 40% of Walker's money is coming from 3 individuals, out of state individuals. And you know, as I say, you can count Bob Penny as in-state money for Dunleavy, but Francis's money. His brother lives in Houston, and Bachman lives in Minnesota. So. Plus, you got all this Houston money that's coming in. So there's a lot of outside money. It's disclosed, so it's not dark at least, but there's a lot of outside money that's coming into the state. I took a glance at Les's donations and at Charlie's donations. There's no $100,000 donors for either. I didn't see any for Les, but there's no $100,000 donors for Charlie. I went through his fairly completely last night. So it's we're seeing money attracted to the candidates, and even with that, I guess it's notable. Even with that, Walker is still in third place in the initial voting according to the polls. So
right. Well, and again, interesting. Charlie with the lowest name recognition of the bunch, and probably competing at $25 intervals instead of $100,000 intervals as far as donations go. Yeah, I mean, it's everything that I can do to try and just get Charlie's name out there for people because we need that other choice. I was literally shocked when I saw that reporting that Dunleavy had garnered 42% of that vote. And I'm glad you were able to dig in and get the figure out that was actually round 2, because I was just like, what happened? It's good to know that Charlie does have at least enough name recognition, it seems, to trump the rest of the pack, so to speak. But let's hope that maybe between August the 16th and November, Charlie can make enough headway to eke and eat a little bit into Dunleavy's lead, giving them a second option anyway, at least.
Michael, we need to think about this because again, what the poll tells us is who finishes in fourth. Where somebody's way out in front, who finishes in fourth is important. So, I am sure there's a scenario where you want, this is horrible to say, but where you want Charlie in fourth, you want his second preference votes to be the ones that determine the outcome of the race. If Charlie would sneak ahead of Les, for example, or sneak ahead of Walker, and then it's Walker's votes or Les's votes that determine the outcome in the ultimate in round 2, that's not the outcome you would want. So this is the strategy and the tactics behind all of this is just sort of mind-boggling. So, for example, just to put some concreteness. So, for example, let's say Les takes off, and let's say Les gets close to Dunleavy, and it's the two of them that are 1 and 2 after the first round's done.
Right.
Charlie comes up, overtakes Walker, and Walker drops to fourth. So then in round 2, it's Walker's second preference votes that are distributed instead of Charlie's.
Right, which are more likely to favor Les than anybody else at that point. So you're right. It is interesting in that regard, because if Charlie does become third, then whoever he beats at this point, it would be Walker would be the next lowest. Then Walker's number 2s would go to presumably Guerra. Potentially, if it was 20 and 26, that puts him at 46. That would lead maybe to a fourth round. So this whole thing is so complex. It's so convoluted. And of course, making the recount nearly impossible, because it's all with these various ballots, and it's got to be done by computer, which nobody trusts that anymore. It seems like everybody's got some questions about it. It definitely leads to a lot of questions. It is a super complex situation.
It is, and I'm not sure at the end of the day if this is going to express the will of the people or not, because you've got a situation in which the fourth, at least looking at the poll that Ivan did and the results from the poll, you've got a situation in which the fourth round, the fourth place second preference votes are going to determine the outcome of the election. The second finisher and the third finisher's second preference votes aren't going to have any impact.
Yep. All right, we got to go. We heard the ding. Time to jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share the show. Here we go. All right, Brad Keithley is our guest. Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We're ready to dive into this. Number 2. I don't know if we're going to get to number 3. We're working hard. Getting to number 2, which, of course, is the governor's spin on the fiscal year 23 budget. I read this piece, Brad, and I just don't even know what to think at this point. I just don't. How do you polish a turd? Apparently, according to Mythbusters, it can be done. And Dunleavy is attempting it here. I don't know if he does as good a job as Mythbusters, but what say you?
Well, the headline of the article, this is an op-ed piece written by the governor or whoever writes for the governor these days. Opinion: State's 2023 budget represents bipartisan wins for Alaskans. I get it. It is campaign season, and an incumbent governor wants to say that what he's doing is a good job, and he's pushing forward for Alaskans, and as part of his campaign to be reelected, I'm doing it now and reelect me so I can continue to do it. I get all that, but he's celebrating he is celebrating a budget that is not a victory for many. It's a victory for those who like government spending. It's a victory for the top 20% who want to finance that government spending by PFD cuts. But it's not a victory for either those middle and lower income Alaska families who would benefit from PFDs, or a victory for those who believe in smaller government and more limited government. What the governor does is sort of cherry pick. You got to keep in mind that this last session really did two budgets at once. They redid the FY22 budget by adding a bunch of supplemental spending, and then they did the FY23 budget. And when you look at the two budgets combined, there's not good news on the PFD front. The FY22 budget has something like $1.8 billion in PFD cuts, the biggest PFD cut in the history of the state, but the biggest PFD cut since 2026 or 2016, by far the biggest PFD cut. We had supplemental money, we had additional FY22 money, but we didn't use it for that. We didn't use it to help supplement the FY22 PFD. We left that PFD cut in place and used the supplemental money for additional spending, additional capital spending to pay off past school bond debt reimbursement that the state had cut, to pay off to fund the oil and gas tax credit fund, which was running low, to pay it off not only in the past but going forward. We did it for additional capital spending, but we didn't use any of it to help supplement what was the largest PFD cut in the state's history. The FY23 budget looks better from the PFD standpoint, because you've got a PFD plus you've got the energy rebate, the energy relief. But when you consolidate the FY22 and the FY23 PFDs, you still have a huge PFD cut. You still have, it'd be near the largest in the state's history if you just average it out between the 2 years. And also in FY23, you've got additional spending on the capital budget and additional spending on statewide spending, and you got the set aside for K through 12, the forward funding for K through 12. So you've got, when you look at these two budgets together, you have a disaster. You have a disaster from the standpoint of the PFD, and you have a disaster from the standpoint of increased spending, diverting money from PFD cuts over to increased spending. What the governor's piece does is he cherry picks, right? He talks a lot about the PFD portion of the FY23 budget, and claims success on the PFD. With respect to what was done with the FY23 portion. He talks a lot about savings, which is coming from the FY22 portion. So he sort of weaves in and out, talking about one year alone when it suits his purpose, talking about the 2 years combined when it suits his purpose, and claiming victory out of that. Obviously it's a campaign piece. It is trying to create the impression that this budget resulted in a strong bipartisan result, as he put it. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at those two budgets combined, when you look at the legislative session and what it did to FY22 and FY23 combined, it is huge spending financed on the backs largely of middle and lower income Alaska families through huge PFD cuts.
Yeah, I mean, I had to say that the one paragraph in this whole thing that just made me think, this is not what you want your base and the people that elected you to read, Mike Dunleavy, when he said, "We're rebuilding our savings account that were nearly drained when I took office. Based on current projections, we were able to put $1.7 billion into the constitutional budget reserve, use the additional surplus to fund K-12 for the fiscal year. That's $1 billion, by the way, and put more than $340 million into the higher education fund. Combined with the royalty back payments to the CBR, we're saving about $3.6 billion. Now, wait, you said you were going to give us a full PFD, and although earlier in the argument in the budget or in the article, you tell us, oh, well, this is the largest PFD in history. It's not a full PFD, and yet you're bragging about putting away $3.6 billion, but we don't have any money to pay a full PFD. I mean, this is just complete and total. This is not real logic, I guess, is what I'm saying.
But it's logic that, according to Ivan's poll, is getting him 40+% in the first round.
Well, that's true, I guess.
And 50% in the second round. I mean,
yeah.
So what's going on here is they have a bunch of facts from the budgets, the FY22 and the FY23 budgets as they got finished in the session, and then someone's gone through. It's like a game of 52 pickup, right? Somebody's gone through and picked.
I like that one. I like that one. I like
Exactly.
that one. I like that one. I don't like that one. Don't pick that one up. Pick this one up.
Exactly right. And then you're writing an article. Then you're writing an op-ed out of the cards that you picked. So yeah. It's a campaign piece. It's a campaign piece geared to. Oh, I hate this term, but it's true. Low information voters who are getting most of their knowledge from reading the ADN, the op-ed, and the articles in the ADN, and the most important part of it to Dunleavy is the part that says victory, success, bipartisan success.
Wait! You're saying he has a big banner behind him that says "Mission Accomplished," right? I mean, that's the whole thing. We got about 2 minutes here, Brad. Final things on number 2, and I guess we'll do number 3 over the break, unless you want to hold on into the next hour.
No, let's do it. Let's do it over the break. Well, final things on number 2 is don't watch the words. Look at what actually happened in the budget. We've had analysis up on our page on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets Facebook page or on our website that goes through looks at the FY22 and FY23 budgets, looks at the PFD cuts. And really analyzes this budget. One concerning thing, and I'll leave with this. One concerning thing: if Dunleavy thinks this budget is a success, God only knows what that means for the second term.
Talk about what would a failure look like at this point? What would a disaster look like at this point? It is insane. Well, Brad, thank you for your analysis on this. I don't even know what the next 4 years looks like. I really don't. I would hate to even put money out at this point. We really need to get some more name recognition for Charlie Pierce on this and work hard between now and November, I think. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you, my friend, for coming on board.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
Folks, that means we're out of time for hour 1. You got to go to work. Be kind, love one another, live well. We will see you in hour 2. Chris Story's coming up then. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Yeah, I'm just thinking, how could you read or write this paragraph with a straight face and be like, I'm your hero. Let me beat my chest. Look at me. I am the full PFD warrior. Pay no attention to the fact that I put $3.6 billion away and that you pitiful peasants, you got the highest. Why are you complaining? You got the highest you've ever asked for. We did it for you. Oh, my God. This guy is just killing me.
Yeah, and buying into the argument that this is the highest ever, looking at the absolute amount as opposed to the percent of what it should have been or anything of that sort, is just sort of buying into the same philosophy that's been used the last 5 years of we'll just set the PFD on a whim. We'll set it by number as opposed to looking at what the statute says.
Well, people forget this is only like 60% of a full PFD. Because if you take the energy rebate out, it's what, $2,500, and they say a full PFD by the average should be about $4,200, $4,300. So you're getting about 60% of a full PFD. I mean, it's crazy.
Even include the energy rebate, Michael, and add it to and then combine it with FY22. What we've got, including the energy rebate, what we've got is about a 50% of the statutory PFD. Those 2 years combined. The important deal out of this session is to keep looking at what they did with FY22 and FY23 combined.
Right.
And when you because they had the money to pay off the FY22 PFD. When you combine those two, what they essentially did was pay a 50% of statutory not a 50-50, but a 50% of statutory PFD combined over those 2 years. And to claim, and to cherry pick and say, well, let's just look at FY23. We did good on FY23. Well, what they did, looking at those 2 years combined, what they did is really load the money into FY23.
Right.
So they can say, look at the FY23 PFD. Isn't it big? Isn't it a great thing? Leaving the FY22 $1.8 billion or $1.7 billion PFD cut in place, and not addressing that at all, but loading it all into FY23 so you get a talking point out of FY23.
All right, Brad, number 3, we got about 4 minutes here. Number 3, which is this friendly, quote unquote, lawsuit that the legislature decided to throw $100,000 at. Give it to me.
So we've been having a dispute, goes back to the Walker administration, between the legislative auditor who audits the state's books on an annual basis and the administration, starting with the Walker administration, about what to do with about $1.5 billion, if I recall, in refunds that came to the state out of a previous TAPS pipeline case. TAPS was ordered to refund a bunch of money to the state, or to refund a bunch of money to producers that then flowed through to the state in terms of taxes. And the question was whether that goes to the CBR, excuse me, whether that money goes to the CBR or it goes to the general fund. If it's treated as a refund of prior taxes due, it goes to the CBR. The Constitution says it goes to the CBR. If it's treated as current revenue, essentially, it goes to the general fund. And the administrations, Walker administration and the Dunleavy administration, have argued that it should be treated as current revenue and go to the general fund. The legislature believes it should go to the CBR. Frankly, at the end of the day, it doesn't make that much of a difference about where you account for it. But nevertheless, the two have battled on and on about it. And this has been going on for several years, as I say, stretching back to the Walker administration. So what the legislature did, what the Legislative Budget and Audit Committee did this past week, was say, we need to resolve this. And the way we're going to resolve it is file a friendly lawsuit in the courts against the administration to ask ultimately the Supreme Court, first the district court and then the Supreme Court, to resolve where this money should go. And to fund this lawsuit, to pay for this lawsuit, we're going to authorize $100,000 for private lawyers to go fight about this, $1 billion to $1.5 billion determination. In the past, this says two things about the state. One, in the past, this would have been resolved by an attorney general's opinion. This state, at least up until the Walker administration, relied on attorney general's opinions as sort of the equivalent of Supreme Court opinions. You can find a lot of decisions that have been made by the legislature or decisions that may have been made elsewhere that are relying on attorney general's opinions. Basically, this says we don't trust, basically what the legislature is saying is we don't trust the attorney general anymore. And now we've got to engage the courts. And to engage the courts, we're willing to pay $100,000. $100,000, as a former lawyer, that's, even to me, that's a lot. $100,000 to fight a lawsuit, a friendly lawsuit with the administration over how to allocate this. It should be resolved by the attorney general. We should rely on attorney general's opinions and move on. But for some reason, the legislature and this is Natasha as chairman of the LBNA, the legislature and the administration keep on fighting about this and now want to spend $100,000 in state money, bleed it out into private lawyers' hands to fight about it in the courts. I think that's just a wrong-headed decision.
Do you have an opinion quickly here on where you think the money should be? I mean, the CBR, since it's owed a bunch of money, I think would probably be the logical place. But what do you say?
Oh, I think it ought to be in the CBR. I mean, I've fought these pipeline battles over the years, and I think this should be treated as a refund. But again, it's not really that big a deal. Certainly not a big enough deal to spend $100,000 trying to resolve it when you've got an attorney general who can give an opinion that resolves it instead.
Brad Keithley, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. We'll see you next week with more exciting news.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
Folks, we got to go. Hour 2 dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Here we go.
Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Got to turn that thing up. Across the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and FM translator. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Hi, how are you? How are you doing, my friends? Oh, man, I got to tell you, just another day here in rainy, wet, splattery paradise. I love it. I absolutely love it. It is the Michael Duke Show, Tuesday edition of the show. We just finished up with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets and the weekly top 3. Now, if you missed it, no problem. Just go back and listen to it on the podcast, which is available every day simply by going to, well, wherever you listen to your podcasts. You do listen to podcasts, right? I mean, I think most average people listen to podcasts now at some point. CastBox, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, Apple, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and, of course, my favorite, Spotify for podcasts. You can look us up on any of those, and if you subscribe, it will automatically download the podcast every morning, and away you go. So go check it out. But it was a good discussion with Brad for the weekly top 3. This hour, we're going to be talking here in a few moments with Chris Story, the man from Homer, who's going to come on board and give us our weekly life coaching lesson? ? I guess that's how we need to look at it. The weekly life coaching lesson. He's going to help us through. He's going to give us some positivity, and we're gonna talk with him here in just a minute or so. Well, just about 10 minutes or so. I say. Meanwhile, I guess we'll cover some of the other stories, but I mean, I want to go back a little bit here and talk about what one of the things that Brad was discussing, which is the ranked choice voting and this latest survey from Alaska Survey Research talking about the governor's race. The survey actually put Mike Dunleavy quite a bit ahead in the poll, and it basically said, well, Mike Dunleavy is going to capture in the initial results and basically into the second round of voting, that it will be Mike Dunleavy at 42% and Les Guerra at 26% and Bill Walker at 20%. And I'll be honest with you, I was shocked that Mike Dunleavy, in this purported poll, which is, I think, almost 1,000 registered voters who are likely to vote in the next election, I was shocked that 42% would put Dunleavy back in office, because as I've stated on this program before, I'm fairly, I don't think that's even right. I am extremely, I guess that's probably a better descriptor. I am extremely disappointed in the governor's performance, especially in the last couple of years. Now, I mean, there is, I do think that he did a pretty good job during the pandemic, holding things at bay. I mean, there's some things you could argue about there, but I think overall he did a pretty good job. I thought that his first budget was that came out there 2018. I thought that budget was reasonable, even though there was caterwauling to the sky about it, right? People were freaking out, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, blah, 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 blah. But ever since then, the governor has, in fact, I think, done a pretty piss-poor job of getting the work done that he was hired to do, what he ran on. And what I'm really disappointed in, and maybe this is my own personal bias, coming out there, is his lack of communication and transparency with his constituency, with the base, with the people that he talked to get elected. And I'm really frustrated with that. The governor, I invited the governor on the program when he was running for office, and I asked him the same question that I ask almost every politician of worth, which is, will you come on a semi-regular basis to talk with us about what's going on, to give us your thoughts, to tell us a direction? Oh, yes, 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 yes. Now, it has been, well, let's see. I can let me tell you when the last time the governor has. It has been quite a while since the governor has been on the program. In fact, I want to say it has been months. I'm just looking back here to see. I think that maybe he was on in April. Maybe it was March. It could be as far back as I'm looking right now, just to see if it. I'm actually looking at the looking back at the podcast list here to see when the last time that I had the governor on. I'm thinking. Well, maybe I haven't had the governor on since the beginning of the year. I don't see. I guess I don't see it since the beginning of the year. So maybe it is. I may not have had the governor on for the last 7 months. I just don't see it right off the. I'm scrolling through it. I should have looked this up during the break, but I was distracted with talking with Brad. But I do not see the governor has. The bottom line is that I keep asking. And in fact, the last time I asked the governor to come on, I had to beg, borrow, I had to berate, I had to basically, I had to go at it from a different angle. I couldn't even go through his press secretary. I had to go through somebody else to get to the governor to get him to come on the program. And that's disappointing. Because to me, a leader communicates the direction he's going. In my mind, a lot of times it's like a battlefield commander, right? And it's just how I think of things. And if you're offended by the whole battlefield analogy, sorry, but that's how I think of things. He may not tell you all the strategy about but you're getting the overall battle plan, right? You're getting the overall objectives of where you're going and what you're doing. You may not get the details of every action or every plan or every maneuver, but you're getting the basic idea of where you're going, and this is where we're heading, and this is what we're doing. I had applauded the action by the governor at one point when he was a bit at odds with the news media, when he said, well, I'm just going to go to Facebook and we're going to talk directly to the people. And I was like, yes, Yes, do that. Do Facebook Lives with the people. Do that. And what did he did it twice or something, and then he stopped. And he's just not communicating what he's thinking or where he's going. It has become apparent to me, and I think Brad has actually touched on this a couple times during our discussions, that this governor has become extremely pole-oriented. It's like he's taking the weather to see which way the wind blows, and then he tries to embrace those things in that regard. It is excruciatingly frustrating to watch. Somebody just said that I did have him on this year. He mentioned that he wanted to be on a Firearms Friday. Well, good luck getting. I mean, here's the other thing. This is a pet peeve as a radio host. When you invite somebody on the program and you're like, look, I will give you nearly the full hour to discuss a wide range of topics, whatever we decide to talk about, here's what we'll talk about. And the answer is, well, we only can talk about, we've only got 10 minutes. We've only got 12 minutes. We can only talk from, this weird time to this weird time. Instead of talking, from one commercial break to the next, I can only join, he can only join you 5 minutes into the segment, and then he has to go by the end of the segment. And this is a total pet peeve of mine, because my whole style of, and if you've listened to the show, you know this, my style is long form. My style is not soundbite. It's not scripted with a bunch of different, with a bunch of different pre-written questions or anything. It's a free-flowing conversation. I will tell them, people say, well, what questions are you going to ask? I said, well, we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. I'll give them 3 topics that we'll discuss, but I'm not giving them questions ahead of time. I want to have a free-flowing form of conversation. I think that's the best. But the problem is that this governor has gone pretty much radio silence. There is just no communication with rank and file constituents as to what's going on. Maybe some of the people in the political, in the political realm, maybe they're in the know, but the rest of us are kind of just like, I just don't know what's going on. If there's any piece of advice that I could give to anyone that's running for office in this way, it is, can you keep us in the loop as to what's happening? Can you keep us, can you keep us together? I'm frustrated. I am frustrated, to say the least, over this whole situation. It looks like the last time that I had him on the program was November of last year. I just did a search. I did a complete search. November of last year. So 8 months ago. And it's an election season. You think somebody would be reaching out to me instead of me trying to hound him. And it's just, the whole thing is frustrating. Especially since I had such high hope. And I guess this is the problem with getting high hopes for a politician. I guess I should learn my lesson. You'd think I would have learned my lesson after supporting Bill Walker originally before he split and joined with Byron Malott. I was a supporter of Bill Walker, and I guess you think I would have learned my lesson from that. But apparently not. All right. Well, we're up against the break. I guess I've ranted enough for the day. We will we'll continue here in just a moment. We've got Chris Story, the man from Homer. He's going to be continuing with us and giving us a weekly update. Little life coaching. We'll return with more in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
I don't know if you can hear the frustration in my voice, but it's so irritating. I mean, look, not that this show is the end-all, be-all of media outlets, but we've been a pretty friendly atmosphere for the governor for quite a while, and yet we can't be bothered to – he just can't be bothered to come on board and talk with us. I mean, it's so frustrating. So frustrating. Yeah, it looks like the 4th of November is what it looks like. That's the last time. That's the last time that the governor was on the program. The 4th of November. I'm going back here to make sure that is the actual case here. Yeah, I just don't see anything. But oh wait, no, that's not it. I thought for a second that I was wrong, but then I realized that I was mistaken. Okay. Well, now it's broken. Now I broke it. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know what to say. Well, I guess we'll. Oh, there we go. Yep, the 4th of November. 8 months ago. 8 months ago. Man, the governor's far too busy picking out his obscurely ethnic North Face jackets and vests for his press junkets. He can't be troubled to answer the questions of the peasants, says Anthony. Terry says, Dunleavy isn't even campaigning. Does he think he's just a shoo-in? I guess. I mean, according to that poll that we were just talking about, it looks like maybe he is. Michael says he questions the poll's accuracy with only 1,000 people. I mean, there's statistical modeling, Michael, that shows that 1,000 people could be. I mean, that 1,000 people could be a representative sample of how many. I mean, polls are. How do you run a poll for a nation when they, this is a nationwide poll and we surveyed 1,400 people or 10,000 people out of 330 million? How do you say that's a representative sample? I mean, there's science behind it, and no, I don't necessarily understand it, but by God, at least I just want somebody who will continue to talk to us. I just want somebody who will continue to explain their actions and give us their goals and their, give us an outline of their plan of where they're going and everything else. David said it would be interesting, that he would be interested to hear what Dunleavy would say. The spin. Christopher says he ran against Walker. It was the only choice you had the only choice you had was Dunleavy. Well, I mean, I guess that's true. But remember, Mark Begich was running as well. So maybe was he the only conservative choice? So that's what you got? I mean, there was others. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm so frustrated by this whole thing. But maybe that's why we should just bring our guest on and talk to our guest, Chris Story, the man from Homer. I guess I need to flip some switches here and put the right stuff in so that you can actually hear him. Hello, Mr. Story. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. Meade Treadwell was also a conservative choice.
That's right. Meade Treadwell was a conservative choice. Although on its face, I guess, maybe they ended up both being about the same level of conservative. But my concern was that Meade was definitely not a full red conservative that I thought. But you know what? Who knows? Maybe that would have been. I don't know if that was the better choice or not. I don't even.
I think your point, what I'm hearing is that you just want somebody who's willing to be, I don't know, vulnerable, real, show all, whatever, make a decision and stand by it, stand tall by it, and just say, this is my decision, rather than sticking a wet finger in the air and trying to determine the winds and will of the people and what will make me more popular. I can't stand that.
No. The whole edict by poll is just, it's irritating as hell. All right, hold the line, Chris. Chris Story, our guest, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. All right, welcome back. The Michael Duke Show. Chris Story, the man from Homer, he is a realtor. He is a potter. No, like with pottery, not with the other stuff. And he is a all-around good dude. Oh, plus he's like, a motivational speaker, writer, author, all-around Renaissance man. Chris Story joins us this morning from the land down under, on top of the world on Homer. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Michael, guess where I woke up this morning?
On top of the world.
I wish I could deny it, but that's exactly where I am. And today I thought to myself, with apologies to Elmore Leonard, I wanted to talk with you about a topic I'm calling, Hey Shorty, Get Confident.
Hey Shorty, Get Confident. Just so you know, Elmore Leonard has wrote a book called Get Shorty. Anyway, I like it. Hey Shorty, Get Confident. I didn't know what we were going to talk about today. I'll be honest, I need this talk today, whatever it is. I need a little bit of positivity in my life. The last day or two has been a little bit rough in the old work. Yesterday I went in, I was just so scattered. I couldn't get it. I felt down, like, boy, I'm doing horribly. I don't know what's going on. So I definitely know that these weekly visits with you are definitely a balm to my soul, and they help me out. So, hey, Shorty, get confident. Tell me about it.
Well, and I did read some of the blogs of your employees yesterday, and you did horribly. That's been confirmed by three independent sources.
That is true. So. I mean, yesterday I walked around like, what am I doing? Why did no, it was horrible. Yesterday, I mean, it was a beautiful day and everything else, but by the end of the day, I'm like, I'm going home and starting fresh.
And they were talking about you behind your back. But anyway, that's a whole other topic, true. Michael. That's a separate. Let's just do that on our paid for coaching. But yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about confidence, because I think confidence is so often mistaken, or what's another word, conflated with arrogance. I think the two are often mistaken. And truly, confidence is, by definition, the state of feeling certain about the truth of something. And so basically, it's a state of mind. And I think arrogance, of course, personally, arrogance is actually the concealment of the lack of confidence. It's a lack of certainty. I think arrogance, when you find it in yourself or others, is really masking an insecurity or a collection of insecurity. So essentially, I think, and I would proffer this morning to you, Michael Dukes, that you can improve your life in a minute, in a second, in an instant by simply deciding to be confident, making a decision to employ confidence right here, right now. Because after all, it's simply a state of mind. It doesn't mean you know everything. It doesn't mean you've got all the answers. But here's what confidence means in my mind. You have the courage to ask the questions. You have the courage to say, I don't know, but I'll find out, or ask the question, and of the right people, by the way. Don't ask the wrong people the right questions. Ask the right people the right questions. That will build your confidence. Confidence is essentially something that I believe you can build upon. It's like a muscle, and once you start using it and you employ the state of mind and decide right now to do it and become confident, you will become confident. And you can use curiosity as your guide. Simply show up and be curious, and you will become more confident in everything you do. Guaranteed.
You know, I've never been accused of not having, of being timid or not having confidence. I've always been a pretty confident person in a lot of ways. But even people who are confident, like I said yesterday, I would have said I was not confident that I was doing a good job. You know what I mean? There are times even then that you have to deal with that. How do you, as a very confident personality and positivity guru, How do you deal with issues like that where you're feeling like I am not put together? I am the worst person in the world right now for what's going on. What do I do? What's your secret, Mr. Story?
I'm so glad you asked that. That's quite funny you should say that. The truth of it is, I think that the secret to confidence is to notice when you're not. Notice when black flag in your life. If you're just a little unsure of something, stop and notice it. Use that as a compass to determine, wait a minute, what's going on here? What am I missing in this moment? Who can I turn to? Who can I ask? Or do I need just a minute to withdraw from society? Do I need to withdraw from this incident and just go get centered? And by centered, I mean, that's anything from walking in nature. That's anything from closing your eyes for a minute. That's just being still. Or it could be just curiosity needs to reign the day and say, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to sit down and talk to somebody, or I'm going to find out what is happening, ask questions and get answers. And I think you'll begin to just employ this confidence. So if you feel a lack of confidence often, or you feel like, man, I just keep getting stuck or my progress is halted, then I think you have to come back to that decision that I shall be confident, which means I'm willing to say I don't know. I'm willing to be curious. I'm willing to explore what's going on and take ownership and take responsibility. Be willing to say, you know what? I probably didn't do what I needed to do this weekend to bring my best self to work Monday morning, whatever. I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm just going to go get centered. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be alone for a minute and really just understand this is a trigger point to remind me to go take care of myself. But having the confidence to explore beyond your comfort zone, I think is another thing that, when you feel uncomfortable with something, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I like this. Decide you like that feeling. Oh, I like it. And I'm confident and comfortable feeling uncomfortable. Paradoxically, essentially what you're doing is saying, oh, got it. I know this feeling. I've been here before. I was very uncomfortable and not confident in walking until I was about 2 or 2.5 or whatever. And now I'm completely confident. I don't even think about it. I have all the confidence in the world to handle the vehicle in almost any kind of traffic. But it used to be I couldn't drive. When I got my permit, I was completely incompetent and uncomfortable and not confident in driving. Thank goodness, because that's when you pay most attention. So not being confident doesn't mean that you allow yourself to feel weak. And I think that's a big difference. There's that fine gray mist of confidence, arrogance, and weakness, and how they get conflated and confused. And I think it's just understanding confidence is showing up, even though you don't have all the answers, showing up knowing you are equal to every single person on this planet. They say never meet your heroes. Well, why? Because you're going to discover they're human just like you. They're beautifully and fabulously flawed just like you. So if you meet them, you're going to be disappointed. Well, the reality is you're just going to realize they're no different than you, and you should have all the confidence in the world to walk out on the stage of your life, even if you don't want front and center stage. You don't want the spotlight necessarily, like Michael Dukes and Chris Story. We obviously crave it, hence the microphone in our face constantly. But the idea that you don't have to be like Michael Dukes to be confident in who you are and what you do, because you just heard Michael Dukes confess and admit to you that yesterday, he wasn't feeling it, didn't feel the confidence. It wasn't there. And yet you, Michael, have the ability to face that, change your state of mind, and come back here at 6 o'clock this morning and do what you do.
It's interesting because, like you said in the beginning, a lot of people mistake, and I don't know if it's a perception thing or if it's just a difference in personalities, but a lot of people mistake confidence for arrogance. And whether that's people perceiving you as being confident / arrogant, or whether you saying, I'm going to be confident, so you act arrogant instead of actually acting confident. Break down those two things for me in your mind. Like if I'm going to go out and I'm going to go forth and be confident, but instead I'm really just acting arrogantly. Break it down for me as to which, how do I use confidence instead of, again, being arrogant about it?
I think it's ultimately just admitting that I don't have all the answers in the situation. I can be confident in the unknown, But arrogance is trying to mask my ignorance. Arrogance is trying to mask my insecurities and my inability to cope with my deficiencies rather than fill in for or try to overcome those deficiencies. And I think when you project arrogance onto somebody who is confident in a situation that you are not, it's just simply a projection. Psychologically speaking, you're projecting your lack of confidence in this situation on somebody who is incredibly confident, or they might just be arrogant. They literally might themselves be trying to make up for or compensate for something that might yet be unseen or unknown by everybody else, but they know they're phoning it in or faking it until they make it, whatever, and they're going to display arrogance, sort of peacocking around, when really they're a vulnerable child inside who's trying to throw out their porcupine quills to keep everybody else at bay. I think it's just a matter of curiosity and saying to yourself, is this person arrogant or is this person confident? I got into a dispute with somebody over a business situation, and they assumed it was racially motivated. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? So rather than just let this assumption go by, I said, you know what? Let's meet. Let's you and I go meet. I criticized your business. You, and justly so, by the way, and you threw in my face that it was racially motivated. Let's go sit down and talk about it. And I asked this person, I said, did it ever occur to you that rather than racism, rather than me being a racist, could this be that I'm just a jerk? Could I just be a jerk? Did that ever occur to you? And he goes, well, actually, yeah, maybe you are. And we had a great time and we healed the wounds and misunderstanding. But that's a reality that I would suggest to anybody. If you think somebody, let's say, for example, you think Mike Dunleavy is the most arrogant, cocky, rude, whatever your thoughts are, could it be that he hides behind his press secretary and his people and handlers, because inside that 6'7" frame is a small man that is hiding all of his inefficiencies and insecurities? Yeah, that's a real possibility. He is so far outside of his capabilities, he wants to hide and can come off as arrogantly not talking to the public when really he's just a small child inside a giant body hiding. And that's something that might help us understand who he is and the decisions that he makes, or the lack of decisions he's willing to make, as it were. And not to say that, we'll excuse it and give him another term, but maybe we understand the person a little bit more. If we can just separate the tumor from the spine, if you will, and say, here's the arrogance, I see where it lives, versus your ability to make yourself confident in this moment by simply changing your mind. It is a state of mind.
Somebody in the chat room asked, Brian says, is this the companion to Fake It Till You Make It? And I think, in my mind, yes, because it's that, but the problem with Fake It Till You Make It, if there's again, the negative connotations of faking it, we've talked about that really that's how you get ahead and further yourself, is you basically fool yourself. You pretend to be what you want to be until you are. But the corollary to that is that if you fake it in the wrong way, or you fake it too much and you fake that confidence, I think that's when the arrogance comes out, when you're not faking it properly, I guess. is that, if that's a good analogy or not, faking it properly, then you do end up with that arrogance thing.
Yeah, or just recognizing that, I'm feeling arrogant. I don't want to be told. Like, don't tell me that I'm not wearing any clothes or that I've got the underwear on the outside of my pants. You don't tell me what to wear. I recognize I'm being arrogant in this moment. Could it be that I'm masking some insecurity? Could it be that I'm not comfortable in this situation, so I'm going to conceal it with arrogance, like peanut butter on top of a bread? Maybe. And so just being consciously aware and understanding both are states of mind, arrogance and confidence. Confidence is a state of mind that will help you, help others, help yourself understand what else could be going on here. And arrogance is a lack of curiosity. So I think basically confidence is being curious. I can walk onto a stage. I can walk up to you, a stranger. I can walk into a party, walk into a room, and be curious about the person I'm talking to. For example, I have a GED, Michael. So every other person I talk to with either a high school diploma, a college degree, or a PhD could intimidate me. But I've decided to be curious about, let's say, the PhD candidate I met a couple of weeks back. I wasn't intimidated. And even though I have nothing to boast relative to degrees or diplomas, I was incredibly curious as to what drove them to the PhD that they were seeking in that moment. And to me, that's not arrogance, like, I don't need your PhD. No, or, it's piled high and deep. I just say, wow, this is fascinating. Tell me more about it. And instantly, you can build rapport by simply being curious about somebody else. And there you can build your confidence, because you're not showing up to know everything, but you're showing up to learn as much as you can. Confidence grows from that place.
My final thought on this, before I give you your final thought, is that I know, really, we're there finally. Is that I think for me, confidence comes from the fact that I acknowledge and I admit that I don't know everything, and that there's always something new to learn. And that I always try and ground myself in that I just don't know. I mean, I don't know. And the worst part is I don't know what I don't know half the time. And so as long as I acknowledge that, I can be confident in the things that I do know, but I'm not arrogant enough to say that I know everything. And I think that is, to me, one of the basis of confidence. I'll give you the final word here.
I love it, Michael. I think that's perfect. And I'd say you have the right to walk in this world and on this planet with your head held high, confidently into any situation. And remember, the greatest weapon against a lack of confidence is curiosity.
Yeah. No, you got to be curious. You got to be curious in life. And again, understanding that there's always something to learn. I love that. And being confident is probably one of the cornerstones of any successful life. I doubt you'll find many very successful people who are not confident in one way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
Chris Story, ilovehomeralaska.com is his website. He's got a whole handful of books out. He's doing his Backyard Millionaire podcast. He's on the air on KPEN down in the peninsula on Thursdays and Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, and you shouldn't miss him. Chris, thank you, my friend, for coming on board and being part of it today.
My pleasure, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Always good to talk with you, my friend. Always a pleasure. And you notice how he mentioned we'll talk about that on our paid sessions? Was I supposed to be paying you? I forgot. Is it maybe?
We'll talk about that later.
I'm confident that I don't have to pay you. That's what I'm saying right now. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Folks, we're out of time. The Michael Duke Show. One final segment dead ahead. We'll open up the phone lines. Here we go. Common Sense Radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. In the break, just you and me, baby. Just you and me. We shall be confident. Yeah, I'm sorry. Chris just sent me a message. I've got to make sure that I read this. He's offended if I don't read his messages immediately on the air. John Leaks, The Courage to Face COVID-19 is his guest today. Chris' guest today at 1 p.m. for those of you on the peninsula is John Leaks, author of the book, The Courage to Face COVID-19. All right. So there you go. There you go. All right. Did I miss the good news portion of the show, said Jimmy. No, Jimmy, I did not do good news today. I will be doing good news tomorrow. I told you it's not going to be an everyday thing because, believe it or not, it's kind of hard to track down lots of good news stories. You might get one or two a week that are really relevant and good and share, but I am working on it. The good news. I'm sharing with you the good news of our Lord and Savior. No, it's actually just good news. It's good. So, not sure that message will help Dunleavy's reelection. Vote for Mike Dunleavy. He's a giant man baby with feelings and stuff. It's true. Probably not a campaign slogan that you'll be wanting to go with on that for sure. But I agree. I agree with what Brian said that, this is a companion in a way to fake it till you make it. Because the people who I think try to push or press or, who try to overdo the fake it till you make it, that confidence comes off again as arrogance, and that is problematic, to say the least. Problematic, for sure. All right. Marat says, exactly, totally believe he's afraid. She's talking about Dunleavy. This is what Chris was saying. Totally believe he's afraid to face us. It's still early. I don't think I'm voting for Dunleavy. I think that he is, I think Mike Dunleavy, it's ironic, but I think he's way outside of his comfort zone as a person. For being such a big, tall guy, right? Almost 8 foot tall, whatever he is, 6'7" or whatever. He is I think he's uncomfortable, being put in the public eye in that way, which is ironic when you run for governor because that's kind of part and parcel of the deal. But I get the feeling that he is, very uncomfortable in those situations and being outside of his comfort zone. And the only way you really overcome that kind of stuff is to do it. The only way you overcome that kind of stuff is to gain familiarity with it, and you do it. I think it's like what Chris said early on. When you first start driving a car, you're very nervous because you don't, and you're hyper attentive, right? Which is good because you're a new driver and you need to be hyper attentive. But 10 years on, you could drive all the way to work and not even remember the trip, right? You could drive to work on autopilot thinking about something or listening to a book or whatever, and you get to work and you're like, wow, I don't even remember driving here, kind of thing. So I think it's I think it's interesting, but I think mostly my take on it is that the governor doesn't do a lot of the things that I've just described to you. Talking about going out, talking to the public, meeting people, sharing his vision or his goals or whatever, is because he's very uncomfortable. It's very outside of his comfort zone, which again is ironic. Because he is the governor. When you run for that office, there's kind of some expectations for that. All this politics is fine, says Anthony, but let's talk about the massive R2-D2 plot hole in the Obi-Wan series. I have not watched the Obi-Wan series yet. Anthony, no spoilers. Don't want to hear anything about it. The only thing I know about the Obi-Wan series is that Obi-Wan lives because he ends up in the movie. So it's all – I don't want to hear about it, though. Okay. Oh, man. But, yeah, the massive plot holes in the Obi-Wan series. I'll have to see what they do. I've got to watch the Obi-Wan series. Heard Chef biting my tongue. All right. Definitely agree with you, Michael. He needs to get engaged immediately. I'm totally lacking confidence in him. I mean, not surprising. Not surprising. All right. Well, I guess we will open the phone lines and see what you guys have to say, or we could talk about whatever. I'm okay with that. I got nothing. I'm just still thinking about what Chris said. So we'll get back to that. The Michael Duke Show. Here we go. Okay, you ready? Oh, one final segment of today's show. And I'm still thinking about what Chris said. Because I'm the first to admit that, contrary to popular opinion, I am not 100% confident in myself every day, all the time. No, I mean, I was a hot mess yesterday. After doing the show, which I thought went fairly well, I was working and stuff, and I just could not remain on target. I could not remain on task. I could not remain focused. And maybe I should have and I went through the whole day like that. Now, luckily, that made the day go very fast because I was, going around in a little different thing. But, maybe what I should have done is taken 10 minutes to get up, walk around, go outside, breathe some fresh air, center myself, do all that kind of stuff. And come back to it. But there are days when we just don't feel like ourselves. We don't feel confident. We don't feel put together. We feel scattered. And then, of course, we beat ourselves up later on because why couldn't I have done better today? Why couldn't I have been more focused on my work? Why did I get in that 20-minute rabbit hole on Facebook or YouTube or Google or whatever, doing whatever we were doing? Why did I get into that when I should have been focusing on the stuff that I need to get done? I guess my answer to that is, one, kind of forgive yourself because you're human. Two, recenter. Get that confidence again. So, anyway, I was looking forward to Chris's commentary today. First things first. That was the first thing I was looking forward to was Chris's commentary today so that I could get a little bit of that because I need that. I need that probably more frequently than people would surmise. So, look, I want to open up the phone lines and see what you guys want to talk about. Anything that we talked about today is fair game. I am okay with that. Whatever you want to discuss, feel free to dive into it, and let's get into it. Let's see what you guys have to say. 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150. If you would like to sound off and tell us what's going on in your mind or what's going on in your life, or talk to us about a specific topic, you can call in on the Satellite West call-in line. This hour of the program, by the way, being brought to you by your friends at Satellite West, if I didn't mention that earlier. You can find out more about them at satellitewest.com. We appreciate them for sponsoring the program and being part of it, helping to keep us on the air and keep us, keep my kids in shoes and my cup of coffee full. That's what it's all about. So feel free to call us in on that. Coming up on tomorrow's show is going to be Larry Wood, who is the candidate for House District 25 in the Mat-Su. He's going to be joining us. And then we're going to be talking with State Senator Mike Shower. On Thursday, we're going to be talking with Elijah Verhagen, who's running for the state Senate in the Fairbanks area against Click Bishop. And then in the second hour, we're going to be talking with Walter Jones, who is running against Gary Stevens down in the Lower Peninsula, Kodiak and Lower Peninsula area. So we got a full boat of guests this week. I was busy. I may have been a little scattered yesterday, but I did get some stuff booked for this week. So we're looking forward to that coming up tomorrow and Thursday. Meanwhile, we'll go to the phone and see what you guys have to say, and we'll start off over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
It's John up in Fairbanks.
Hello, John. What's on your mind, sir?
Yeah, I enjoyed the discussion about the big guys.
The big guys. Yeah. I think you're a big guy yourself. You understand the big guys.
Yeah.
Big guys with a small baby inside of them. Was that's going to be the campaign slogan? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, there's the difference between 6'7" and 6'9". I'm 5'21", as you know.
Right. 5'21", exactly.
The door jams are, 6'8".
Right.
So you learn real early to duck your head when you go inside a door. You're going to have a nice little scar like I got on the top of my head.
Right.
But you know the deal. Big guys are, they try to be cautious around people just because of the stature. There's things that we can't do.
Right.
We can't sit and coach in an airplane. And I've met the governor before. He seems like a nice guy. And politically, I think he's probably doing a pretty good job. But, Alaskans are like, you put 50 Alaskans in a room, it's locked, and they'll come up with 50 different ways to get out.
Right.
And we'll still be stuck in that room.
We'll be doing a study, right, on how to get out of the room. A study that studied the study on the previous people that were stuck in the room.
Which brings me to the Alaska study industry, of course.
Right.
And we just need to study more stuff. Probably need a study to tell us what we need to study. Because if we study stuff, then we don't have to do anything. Right.
I think you and I had a conversation one time, John, that figured out that they did enough studies that they could fill a whole library wing with just the studies. And so we decided that they needed to do a study on the studies to figure out what we hadn't studied yet, or at least go back over it. I mean, that's the whole baked in the squat mentality that we get, it seems like, out of Alaska government.
Well, the Susitna Dam is a prime example of studies and studies and studies. Alaska has spent billions of dollars in studies. And, you're talking about the permanent fund and things like that, and we're studying what can happen if we didn't, if we'd used the permanent fund the way it was designed, but it's not being used the way it was designed to be used. And so we better study that. And nothing changes. Nothing.
Well, and I agree with that. I mean, at some point you have to move forward. You can't just keep looking and analyzing the problem. You eventually, because you could sit and analyze something to death, you eventually have to move forward. And maybe your information is wrong. Maybe your supposition is wrong. Maybe your plan of attack is wrong. But, inaction is just as bad as making the wrong decision. I mean, at that point, you eventually have to move forward and do something with it. And if you have to change on the fly, then you have to change on the fly. But at least you've got to move forward and do something.
You have to. And in my business, we have kind of a policy that, if something needs to be fixed, we'll fix it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, there's another expression. And I think with Alaska, everybody that we elect seems like they want to be right and they want to be all-inclusive. But sometimes you just can't. You got to do something.
Right.
And if it's wrong, screw it.
Yeah.
You're going to...
You reset.
You can do something.
Yeah, you reset and you take another fresh crack at it is what you do, John. I couldn't agree with you more. John is the founder of the Alaska study industry. He'd like to study some more. So I definitely got it. Thank you, John, for coming on board, my friend. It's good to hear from you. Appreciate you coming on board today. Folks, we are out of time. We got to go. Tomorrow, Larry Wood, Mike Shower, The Michael Duke Show. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. John and I have joked for years that we're stuck in the Alaska study industry matrix. That's exactly what we're doing. We're just like one thing. Well, let's study that. Well, didn't we study it 10 years ago? I don't know. Let's create a study that studies the studies that we studied before. And nobody ever moves. We spend billions of dollars on it, and nothing ever happens. Billions of dollars on studies. All right. Well, we best flee. We got to go. Thanks for coming on board. Be kind to one another. Love one another. Even those that hate you. Even those that irritate you. Those are the ones you need to love the most. All right, my friends, we will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.